Hello, welcome back to Wannabe Racing. Today we'll be talking about this RX-7 here. Might look like a stock FC RX-7, but this was a real rescue story. The Mazda RX-7 in general, they're beautiful cars, especially the FC. People might say that the engines are unreliable, whatever. That didn't stop me from wanting one. One day a buddy of mine, we were watching YouTube like always, and I went to him like, I want a FC RX-7. And he was like, brother, I know where one is. So knowing that he knew where one was amazing. I always kept that in the back of my mind, like, we're getting closer to getting one of my dream cars. So the location of this car was the neighbor of another friend of ours, Mitch. So one day, I wasn't thinking anything of it. I went to Mitch's house with Jacob, and Jacob pointed over the fence like, there's the RX-7. Now from what I can tell, the car was completely buried. No joke. It was all the way up here. Exhaust was buried, everything was buried, but that didn't turn me away. I was like, I want to look at this car. And we had Mitch go to his neighbor's house, like, you mind if we look at this car? And eventually they let us back there and popped the hood. No joke, the pack rat's nest inside there was engine high. You could not see the engine. That still didn't turn me away. I was like, I want this car. We negotiated a price at $300, and it was just go from there. So we bought the car, $300, had a title, had keys, everything, but this car was an absolute disaster. Once we got it out of there, we took it to the shop where Jacob and Mitch worked at, and it was time to start working on it, you know? We vacuumed out the engine bay, power washed it. After that, we took it to our house. Once we got it back to the house, like anything, you want to make sure it turns over. Turn it over, and I was like, I bet you this thing will run tonight, first night. So I put ATF in the rotor housings, soaked up the apex seals a little bit, and later that night, with some brake clean in the intake, started right up. I was so freaking excited. Once I heard this car run, I knew it had potential. So I dug deeper into it. I took off the upper plenum, cleaned up all the rat's nest that was underneath there. I deleted the OMP, which is the oil metering pump, which it injects engine oil into the housings to keep them lubed up. After that, put all that back together, and then we worked on the fuel system. The gas tank was absolutely, it was rusted. There was no helping that at that time. We did our best to clean it out, but it eventually had to be properly cleaned by a professional. The gas tank situation, it didn't stop me and Jacob. We attempted to clean it. We put some gas in it, new fuel pump, all that. And then this thing actually ran under its own power. The next issue was getting it to drive. This thing had an automatic transmission in it, and it was completely smoked. So we attempted to service the transmission, and still nothing. We later found out that a pump bolt came out and started rubbing against the torque converter, which is the wildest thing I've ever seen transmission-wise. And so we put that bolt back in, and I mean, it's still dead and drive, but it would go forward, not reverse. Later that night, we decided to attempt to drive it to my new house, which we're at now, and it didn't make it far. We later had to get it back towed to the shop that Jacob and Mitch were at, and we eventually put it on a trailer and got it up here. So now that I have this car at my house, I knew it was time to really dig into it. It needed so much work, but I could handle it. So I pulled the engine out, automatic trans, all that. This whole engine bay, obviously because of the pack rats, the whole engine harness was eaten through. It was a disaster in this car. But I got everything out of it. I resealed the 13B. Me and Jacob actually sourced a transmission up in Phoenix. I found one on Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, yo, you want to go pick this thing up right now? We went all the way up to Phoenix and got a NA transmission for 150 bucks, drove it back. I eventually sourced the S4 NA parts from all over the country, the flywheel, clutch, everything like that. Resealing the engine, doing transmission swaps, all that stuff, that's easy work. But this car needed the entire engine harness rewired. And that took a lot of work to, tie everything back into where it went. But everything in the engine bay operates as it should. While I was doing everything up here, I decided it was time to get the fuel tank redone by a professional, so I sent that out. The purge valve on top of that was broken. It's 30-year-old plastic. I found out that the NA Miata purge valve on their tanks is a metal one, so I put a Miata purge valve on that. As soon as I got that back, put a Deechworks fuel pump in the tank, put everything back inside the engine bay, and it was time to get this thing running. I got an aluminum radiator for it. As soon as everything was done, all the fluids topped off, all that, it was time to drive this bad boy. It drove amazing. I was so freaking happy. I put so much work into this car, and it was flawless. It just worked.
Yeah, it's recording. It's recording right now, okay? More delay, let's see that RX-7. Get out of the way, Turbo.
I drove this thing to the gas station, bad tags, I didn't care. Filled it up in 91, Idemitsu premix, and it was flawless. It just worked. I got it registered and I daily drove this bad boy for a while. It's not cheap daily driving one of these because they burn through fuel, but nothing beats driving an RX-7. The power band, everything is so good that I really enjoy this car. As you already know, we have so many projects going on. This car was put on the back burner a little bit. It's been in this corner for months now. I would come out here every couple weeks, make sure it runs, and even rarely I would drive it. It's sad, but I have so much other stuff going on. But it's time to change that. It's time to have this car come back. Last week I put a new battery in it just to freshen things up, and I got it running, and I discovered a fuel leak on the fuel rail that's inside the intake manifold. So I ordered parts for that. I'm still waiting for them. And yeah, there's so many more things I could do to this car, and I will eventually do them. The shifter is sloppy. I need to get either new bushings or order a short shifter for it. I like to get wheels and tires for this thing. I guess time will tell. Like always, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more projects like this.